Oil is the chief culprit behind wars in this world. If there were no oil in this world, what would be the consequences? You know how significant its influence is on the world. Today, you can find the answer in this video. First of all, the property of oil is that it is a non-renewable resource. People affectionately call it black gold. Oil is not only the blood of modern industry, but also an important pillar for national economic development. It is the most important strategic resource. Any industrial country cannot operate normally without oil. In global industrial production and manufacturing, oil is widely used in products such as plastics, fertilizers, pesticides, synthetic fibers, rubber, etc., and our lives are closely related to these products. However, human demand for oil is far more than this. From industry to agriculture and transportation, it can be said that modern people's clothing, food, housing, and transportation all cannot do without oil products. Gasoline and diesel are the main power sources for human transportation. They not only ensure the daily operation of vehicles, ships, and aircraft, but are also a crucial lifeline energy source in a country's defense and industrial sectors. Therefore, apart from its indispensable position in the normal operation and economic development of human society, oil is also a unique presence in national defense construction. For a long time, oil was only used for lighting, lubricants, or medicinal purposes. It began to experience explosive development in the mid-19th century. At that time, the energy power provided by coal and steam engines could no longer meet the demands of capitalist countries such as Europe, the United States, and Japan. In 1859, Lenoir invented the first internal combustion engine. Countries sensed this new energy revolution and began to vigorously explore oil. At that time, the United States, relying on its natural geographical advantages, became the world's largest oil producer. In the early 20th century, oil consumption increased, mainly concentrated in transportation, such as cars, ships, and aircraft. However, the uses of oil are far more than this. After extracting and distilling crude oil, oil refineries will separate different hydrocarbons. The top temperature at 20 degrees Celsius is liquefied petroleum gas, which can provide fuel for lighters and kitchens. The temperature between 30 and 105 degrees Celsius can be used as vehicle fuel. The temperature between 105 and 160 degrees Celsius is naphtha, which is an important material for synthetic plastics, textiles, medicines, and cosmetics. The temperature between 160 and 230 degrees Celsius can be used as aviation fuel. The temperature between 230 and 425 degrees Celsius can provide diesel for cars and heating, oil for households. When the temperature exceeds 450 degrees Celsius, the thick high-sulfur residue is asphalt, which can be used for road and roof applications. During World War II, oil resources became an important international issue. The United States, the United Kingdom, and other countries began to seize the oil market in the Middle East. After the end of World War II, the United States formed an alliance with Saudi Arabia, providing military and security support to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia provided oil exclusively to the United States. And in the Iranian Mossad cabinet, Iran's oil was taken back into state ownership. This operation angered the United States and the United Kingdom, who planned a coup and overthrew the Mossad cabinet, supporting a puppet king, Shah Reza Pahlavi. Iran's oil exploitation rights were also completely monopolized by Western business groups. After the discovery of oil in the West Siberia of the Soviet Union, the Soviet Union also began to accelerate the development of the oil industry. In 1959, China discovered a large oil field in the Songlio Basin, Daking oil field. In the following 60 years, Daking oil field produced 40 million tons of oil annually, and China also shed the label of poor in oil resources. In 1960, abundant and cheap oil basically replaced coal as the main energy source in the world. However, at that time, international oil prices were too low, only $2.90 per barrel, to obtain more profits and counter the monopoly of Western oil. Capital: the 5 important oil-producing countries in the world, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait, established the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, also known as OPEC. In the following decades, more and more countries joined OPEC. In 1972, the United States oil production reached its limit. The United States transformed from an oil-exporting country to an oil-importing country. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom began to withdraw its troops from the Middle East, and Iran and Saudi Arabia began to take over the geopolitical security in the Middle East. Around oil, the world witnessed changes. In October 1973, Israel and Arab countries such as Egypt and Syria launched the Yom Kippur War, the Organization of the Petroleum. Exporting countries imposed an oil embargo on Israel and its allies. Oil was used as a weapon for the first time, and the price of oil was slowly pushed up. This was the first oil crisis suffered by the Western countries, led by the United States, all over the world in order to get rid of their dependence on oil. Countries began to look for oil substitutes, turning to nuclear power, hydropower, and secondary utilization of coal. But due to technical reasons, the development of alternative energy was slow. In 1975, the Soviet Union became the world's largest producer. And during this period, the United States gradually discovered underground oil in Alaska. In 1979, the Barevo regime in Iran was overthrown, and an Islamic republic that pursued anti-Western policies took its place. Iran's oil production began to decline, and the oil price rose. In 1980, due to border issues, Iran and Iraq ended an 8-year war. Western countries, in order to protect their own interests, sent hundreds of warships into the Persian Gulf to ensure the normal supply of oil. In 1988, the Iran-Iraq War ended, and the economies of the two countries regressed. By 30 years, in 1990, Iraq launched a war against Kuwait, and then the United States and other countries entered the scene, and the Gulf War broke out. The United States took this opportunity to sign defense agreements with several countries in the Persian Gulf, and the U.S. military bases in the Persian Gulf continued to expand. The U.S.'s largest overseas Air Force base, Udard, is located in Qatar. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the world's energy landscape changed again. Follow me. The second episode of the oil history has been released. Let's continue. After the Iran-Iraq War and the Gulf War, and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Saudi Arabia, which benefited greatly, became the world's largest oil-producing country after the 9/11 incident in 2001. The United States discovered that 15 out of 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia, which made the United States very anxious. The United States needed to find new oil-producing countries to reduce its dependence on Saudi Arabia. The United States turned to Africa, taking Nigeria and Angola as new strategic support points, especially the rich offshore oil in the Gulf of Guinea. It became a contested area for the major oil giants. In 2003, the United States launched a military operation against Iraq without going through the United Nations, claiming that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. It seized Iraq's abundant oil resources and intimidated other Middle Eastern countries. Iran focused its oil market on Asia, targeting emerging countries such as China and India. From 2004 to 2007, with the improvement of the world economy, especially the rapid development of China's economy, and the dark manipulation of Wall Street on crude oil futures, the world oil price showed a soaring trend. In 2008, the world financial crisis broke out, and the oil price dropped sharply. In 2009, after several years of exploration, new oil fields in Venezuela were discovered, even surpassing Saudi Arabia and becoming the world's largest oil kingdom. In 2010, the world's deepest drilling platform exploded in the Gulf of Mexico, causing a massive oil spill and the death of millions of marine organisms, resulting in an economic and environmental tragedy. In 2011, shale gas became the main source of natural gas in the United States. The United States, the world's largest oil and gas consumer, became the world's largest producer. World oil prices accelerated their decline, and there was almost no profit in oil production, which led to the continuous expansion of fiscal deficits in energy countries, such as Saudi Arabia and its allies, and a rift in the relationship between the two sides. In 2016, international oil prices dropped below $30 per barrel to rebalance the market and raise the oil price. And the member countries of OPEC and 10 non-OPEC oil-producing countries reached an agreement on current production. However, the United States did not care about this. The United States insisted on increasing oil production at a lower oil price to support the economic growth of the United States. In 2020, due to the short-term economic shock caused by the pandemic and geopolitical factors, the international crude oil price dropped to $6.5. The WTI crude oil futures price reached an unprecedented negative value, closing at minus $37.63 per barrel. After the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine conflict in 2022, the international oil price soared again, reaching a peak of $130.5 per barrel. The United States and Europe requested the Gulf countries to increase oil production to lower the price, but countries like Saudi Arabia rejected the proposal of the United States. The US president had to personally visit Saudi Arabia to have a meeting with the Saudi king. This is the power of oil. It can be said that every change in the world's political landscape can reveal the presence of oil. In the coming long period of time, the strategic position of oil may be uncheckable by anyone.